Hey, this is Jim with Jimmy Riggs, and today we are going to compare the M1 MacBook Air against the M1 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro using Universal Audio's Luna. Check it out. All right, here we are in the MacBook Air. Here you can see we got 16 gigs of RAM, M1. We have 1 terabyte storage and a handful of external drives. And I'm going to open up Luna. So here is a song that I have been working on some guys at church with. It's a pretty small song, pretty small session, but in the past it was kind of giving me some grief. So let's open up the mixer view so we can see. So we have tape saturation, tape plugins on basically every channel. I'll just go ahead and add them here. Why not? Since that's a little bit more normal. And then I'll be testing this on the other one. So we have master tape, tape saturation on every channel. We have I think these run native. I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments if you know. I know for sure that the API console is running native on when it's not being run, like when you're not tracking. So this runs native to the computer's power. Handful of plugins, UAD, that doesn't matter. We have some Valhalla, TLA chorus, vintage reverb, all that kind of stuff. And then up here, you can see we have API summing, 1, 2, 3 instances of Omnisphere, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instances of Roland Cloud. And right now, without playing, we are sitting at a render percentage of 60%. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute this, and we are going to go and just take a listen and see how it responds once it's playing. Okay, so it looks like we are kind of maxing out at 65% render down here at the bottom left. 69%. So what's interesting is in the past, I had this issue where when I would be playing back audio, starting and stopping and all that kind of stuff, it would, the screen would glitch out, the entire screen would go gray, and the session wouldn't close down, but you could definitely see at least a few months ago, last time I opened this up on the MacBook Air, it would, go to 80-90% of render, and then it would just kind of shut down and open back up. The memory would be going up a little bit. So I'm wondering if, I know a lot of people are having issues with Monterey, but I wonder if maybe there's some kind of I wonder if maybe Monterey is acting a little bit more, I don't know, a little better than Big Sur was. So that's interesting. Cool. So yeah, just a little bit of a song. You're talking about, this is honestly pretty standard as far as songs that I'd be working on. Granted, if I was, working on this in another DAW or Logic or Reaper or something similar, I would probably freeze these MIDI tracks out so that I, wasn't overloading my CPU. But so it looks like at a maximum we hit 70% render on or 70% on this CPU render, which it's not horribly high. I know some people run their computers at like full 99% load until they have to. So it's pretty nice that we have a little bit of headroom, even though it's kind of barely hitting the yellow. I mean, the memory percentage is nothing. So also behind the scenes, we're also running Clean My Mac. So you can actually see, the CPU right now is at 186 degrees Fahrenheit at 53% load. And I don't really quite trust the memory view up here. Let's see what Activity Monitor says. Okay, so we're looking at 97 megabytes of RAM swap used on this, 12 on average, 3 cache. Luna is definitely the biggest RAM hog right now with only 6 gigs of RAM, not a whole ton. Luna, yeah. I mean, you see it's, these M1 Max are just so well optimized and efficient, even for programs and apps that are not native to Apple. So it's pretty surprising. Anyway, so that's this session. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 16-inch M1 Max. All right, so here is the 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. 32 gigs of RAM, M1 Max 16-inch, storage, 1 terabyte, same as the other one. Okay, let's go ahead and open up Luna. So, as I mentioned before, this song had previously given me some grief with it. I don't know if it was a RAM thing where it would be upon playback and start, basically the session would kind of crash, but not really crash. It was kind of weird. If you remember correctly, we had about a similar render percentage down here on the MacBook Air, but we peaked at about 70%. Looks like the memory is about the same. Let's go ahead and play the song. Oh, and before we do that, just to let everyone know, we have the same stuff. We have tape on everything. We have API summing. We have the API Vision Console. Like I said, this runs native, and I think the tape runs native. I think all the Luna extensions run native. API summing is on it. You got tape. Yeah, like I said, you've seen it before. And then we also have 3 instances of Omnisphere and 5 instances of the Roland Cloud, which, like I said before, they really take a beating on the computer CPU. Some side chains, so it's running all native stuff, so forth. So let's go ahead and take a listen from the beginning of the song and see what our render looks like. Sitting around 41, 42. So we're sitting about the same as we were. See how it happens when we go to the chorus. Sitting at 45%. Let's see if there's any change once we add the drums. And still sitting about the same. 45%. 45, 43, 44%. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. So it looks like whereas on the MacBook Air there was a jump in processing power kind of as the song went, you know, as the instruments increased and all that kind of stuff. If I remember correctly, right around here, where when the drums came in and when this other synth came in, it jumped up to 69, 70, 71% of render, which is really surprising. It looks like there's practically no difference in terms of CPU processing power throughout the song. It just kind of stays and stays and stays. I wonder, I'm gonna see what it would take to, I'm just gonna double up all these instruments. Duplicate. And see what that does to the, oh, there's the beach ball. See what that does to the CPU. I doubt it will double it. Okay, so now we're at 56. Okay, so there was 10, 12 increase. Okay, so no, even if they're muted, they're still running. So that's normal. Let's see if it changes as we play the song. 57%. Okay, so just to clarify, remember that wasn't just doubling up the instances of the instruments. So now, so before we had 3 instances of Omnisphere and 5 of Roland Cloud. Now we have 6 instances of Omnisphere and 10 instances of Roland Cloud. Let's go back and see if it changes once we get to that. $58, 59%. So that's pretty interesting. So we have, you know, these 6 instances of Omnisphere, 10 of Roland Cloud, in addition to, you know, the doubling up of tape and the API plugins. So remember, on the MacBook Air, we were at 70% with just the one instance of the same session. So let's just go ahead and double it again. Why not? We'll double up these, which, like I said, now we're going to triple the amount of instruments and native features of Luna. So we're going to duplicate it. I was not expecting or planning on doing this, but here we are. So it'll take a second. Luna still is relatively slow when it comes to like loading up stuff. Okay, so now we're at 70%, 69%. Let's take a listen now. So if you remember correctly, the MacBook Air kind of peaked out about 70 with just the one session on it. So let's go over here to the bridge, which, if I remember correctly, that's when it peaked out. Yeah, 71%. That's so interesting. So in theory, this is all theoretical, right? By you have at least, maybe not quite double, maybe, we'll say 2 to 3 times the processing power, which that was not my original estimate. let's go ahead and see what happens if I'm going to duplicate. So now I'm going to quadruple it. I think so. Yeah, quadruple it. So now we will have, see how much, what's the math on there? Now we'll have, gosh, I'm bringing a blank right now. 15 instances of Omnisphere. And 5 times 5. 25 instances of Roland Cloud. Okay. Now we're having a bit of an issue. Okay. That's fine. An issue. All right, here you go. Now we've hit 100% render. Let's see if we can even play it. So remember, we're at, let's see, count this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so yeah, it's 12. So now we have 15 instances of Omnisphere, 15 with 25 instances of Roland Cloud. Just in instruments, not the drums. Just I duplicate the drums. Okay, let's see if it even plays. So let's start here at verse 1. Okay. Now we're getting some crackling. So this was the issue that I was having with the MacBook Air just a few weeks ago, but before I had the session, quadrupled. So let's go over to the chorus with where there's drums. Yeah, I'm sitting at 99%. So here's the interesting thing. Yeah, there was a little bit of crackling here, but it's still playing, and it's not even glitching out when I'm playing it back. So, granted, you're hitting 100% render. So in this case, you would want to convert this to audio. Let's go back to just the standard session that I have. We will delete selected tracks. We'll go back to just what we had before, and we should see the render go down to 40%. Little beach ball, okay. Now we're at 60%, 48, 45. Man, this is really quite surprising to me. I did not expect to see, well, I expected to see some power difference, but I didn't expect to be able to get 5 times the amount of tracks. If you're doing a lot of virtual instrument stuff, then that might actually be pretty similar. You might not have the doubling up of the same exact sound, but you might have a few different layers of the same thing, Omnisphere, Roland Cloud, or your drumming plugins and all that kind of stuff. So very, very interesting. I originally had my suspicions and thoughts, but man, if you need the power, if you really, really do need the ability to process and do a lot more stuff, a lot more tracks, and you're using Luna, man, the Max is really the way to go. Max or the Pro. Because honestly, when it came to RAM, I didn't really see any difference in RAM. Even right here on Clean My Mac, it's still showing me I have quite a bit of RAM left. And even at the peak of it all, look at that. Right here was only probably 50% of the CPU. Let's see what Activity Monitor says. Okay, and here, check this out. So even on RAM, the max I used was 24 gigs of RAM with 6 in the cache. No swap. So even on a session that had so many unnecessary doubled tracks of process-intensive, CPU-intensive plugins like Omnisphere and Roland Cloud, you still got it done. CPU... yeah, even back then, it's still idle. Pretty similar. Very, very interesting. Well, anyway, that is the 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. I'm really quite surprised to see this, considering one session of this size, which is not that big, got me up to 70% on the MacBook Air, and it took me multiplying it by 5 or adding 4. Gosh, what am I trying to say? Yeah, it's times 5. Multiplying it by 5, the amount of, CPU intensive Omnisphere and Roland tracks just to get up to 100% render is pretty crazy. And it didn't barely put a dent in the memory at all. So this is really surprising. Okay, so after comparing the M1 MacBook Air against the M1 Max MacBook Pro, what are my thoughts? So if I was giving advice to someone who wanted to either say they're going from their standard, Intel MacBook Pro or maybe a 16-inch or whatever, I would say if you're just doing music production, go with and stick with the MacBook Air. It is still the best value out there for music performance as far as I'm concerned. If you're not doing huge sessions, if you're just songwriting, man, dude, it is hard to beat the MacBook Air. It's such a good value. It's super portable. I mean, this is like, honestly, when I picked this back up after having used the 16-inch for a little while, it was surprisingly light. The 16-inch is definitely a lot heavier, and I like it. However, I would say, yeah, this is, I'm going to keep the 16-inch because there are still things about it that I want to keep, that I want to use, that I want to learn with, and get better at, like I said, animation, 3D rendering, all that kind of stuff that I just wasn't able to do on the MacBook Air. But if you're looking to just upgrade your basic Intel machine, I cannot recommend this guy enough. They're killer deal, and like I said, the performance differences, while they are there, I think they're pretty negligible. It's not that big of a difference to justify an extra $2,000 cost. So when you can spend that money on gear and amps and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's all I got for today. Like I said, M1 MacBook Air, great deal. Can't recommend it enough. If you're looking to get into music production, or if you're wanting to upgrade what you have, just go with the MacBook Air. I think it'll do you well, at least for the next 2, 3, or 4 years. So that's what I recommend. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.